So you're thinking about moving, you're feeling overwhelmed. I very much so know that feeling. So today I'll be sharing tips for moving into an apartment. And as always, I have my handy dandy notes so I don't forget anything. I just want to say it had been over 10 years since I had looked for an apartment. And earlier this year, I was looking for one for my mom. Child, a lot has changed. So I'm saying that to say that everything I'm sharing is very beginner friendly. Even though when I was in college, I did move around a lot and I was like quite familiar with like the landscape, a lot of things have changed since then. So I learned a lot throughout this process, and things that I thought I knew were no longer the same because it had been over a decade. So anyways, let's hop right into it. So I was helping my mother find an apartment in Arlington, Texas. And I know you're probably thinking, man, I'm not moving in Texas. Well, it doesn't matter, because a lot of this stuff can be applicable to your rental market if it's one that's similar to Texas. And I'm about to help you kind of try to see if your market is similar to the Texas market. So for example, I live in New Jersey now. New Jersey and New York are not they're not really similar to how things work in Texas. So in Texas, you go out, you look at an apartment, you put down your first month's rent, whatever the deposit is, and whatever other fees you have to pay. If a realtor happens to bring you out, you don't pay the realtor. The apartment complex pays the realtor. That's quite different in New York and New Jersey, because a lot of times you have to pay people like a broker's fee, and you pay that directly to like the realtor or broker that takes you out to look at the apartment, and it could be like the first month's rent or whatever that is. So that way, Texas is very different from New Jersey and from New York also. But some of this could work for you. So even if you're looking in one of those kind of states, baby, don't leave. Stay, because I might have a gym for you too. So anywho, like I said, I was looking in Arlington, Texas. And here, I'm just going to give you the rundown of how I went through this process to help my mom find an apartment. Full disclosure, my mother was sick. She was battling cancer, so I was traveling back and forth from New Jersey to Texas, taking care of a lot of things for her, and looking for a new apartment happened to be one of them. So the first thing that I did was I got the list of things my mother was looking for in her new apartment. So she wanted a first floor unit. She wanted a unit that either had a washer and dryer connection or that came with a washer and dryer. A lot of places have started charging for parking, so she was interested in maybe finding a place that wasn't charging for parking. She wanted to be in a close proximity to my sister, and she wanted the bathroom to be outside of the bedroom, so like you could enter it without entering her bedroom. So she had a list, and then there was a certain budget we had to stay within. So she had a laundry list of things that she required in an apartment. And when I thought about hiring a realtor, I said to myself, would they put in the time to try to find all of these things, or would they decide what maybe the top 2 or top 3 things were, and then be like, well, I couldn't find one that met all of the requirements, but I met some that met 2 or 3. I just felt like, even though I had a task ahead of me, who was better suited to do this for my mother than me? So I said, you know, let me give this a try. So once I got her list in hand, the next thing I did was I went online and I searched the area around where my sister lived. And I was like, well, I'll stay within a certain, you know, like mile radius to where my sister lived. I wrote down all of those apartment names, and I think I ended up with like 20 apartment complexes. But wait, because I know y'all like, girl, 20 apartments. I ain't got time to go look at all of those. Come back, because that's not what I did. Stay focused. I wrote down those 20 apartments, and here is what I mean by the landscape has changed since I looked for an apartment over 10 years ago. Because when I was looking for apartments back in the day, yes, these complexes had websites, but you weren't going to get a lot of information from them besides the address and the phone number, and you were going to have to call or go see all of these apartments in person. That's not the case anymore, and I was very like shocked in a good way, because this helped me especially as it was related to like efficiency and saving time. So what I did is I did visit all of those apartments' websites. But the cool thing about it is that a lot of the apartments now have when a unit would be available. So my mom had to be out of her apartment by a certain time. So if it was anything beyond that date and they didn't have anything before that, I already knew that apartment complex wouldn't work. They also have whether or not the unit is located on the first, second, or third floor, what the rental range is for the apartment, and if the apartment has a washer and dryer connection. So that saved me so much time. I was able to weed out a lot of the apartments, and I think I ended up getting the list down to like 8 apartments. So from there, what I did is I kind of mapped out on Google where the apartments were versus where I was coming from, so I wouldn't have to be like bouncing all around the town. I could just like visit them one after the other. And my goal was to get it down to like a top 3 or top 4 and then bring my mom to see those apartments. The cool thing also is some of the websites are even so upgraded that they will show you where the unit is within the apartment complex, which is cool if you're a person who's like, I want to be towards the front, I want to be by the pool. You can see some of those kind of things when you're looking at some of the websites, depending on, you know, how upgraded the website is. So anywho, I narrowed down the list to 8. And then I went and visited those 8 properties. And I'm trying to find my spot in my notes because this is, baby, this is tea. This is really important what I'm about to say. So if you're not taking notes or you're like, I'm going to save it all up here, I'm going to give you a moment to go grab a piece of paper and a pencil, pen, whatever you write with while I find my space in my notes, because you're going to want to write this down and bring it with you when you're going to look at apartments, okay? Because I'm about to give you everything you need, okay? So go find it and give me a moment. Okay, here we go. So you go to the apartment complexes, right? Now we're looking. Okay. When you go to these apartments, of course they're going to have you come in, hi, hey, hello, what you looking for, da 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 da. And in your mind, you feel like you're repeating a lot of this because it's like, I've already been on your website, whatever. But you give them your information, your telephone number, your email address, all that stuff. Make sure you bring a valid ID. Otherwise, a lot of these apartments probably will not let you tour, okay? Bring your valid ID. And that's for everyone over 18 that wants to tour the apartment, all right? Don't say I didn't tell you. So, if you're looking at these units in person, especially if the unit that you're looking at is the one that they're like, this will be the one that will be yours, turn on the lights, open the doors, run the water, do all of the things, because maybe the water pressure is low. Turning on the lights will help you see something that you may not be able to see in the dark. Open the doors. Treat it almost as if you would treat it once you move in, because when you move in on that first day, you're going to be doing all of those things. Don't wait to move in to discover a problem. So do all of those things while you're looking at the property, and, you know, look around the property, because sometimes, you know, people say you should go at night to like look at a property. Sometimes you can see stuff during the day. So have your eyes open. Some of the other things that you need to be mindful of, and here's where I'm telling you to like write stuff down. Ask how the water is allocated. In Texas, I know other places probably do this too, but in Texas, specifically in Arlington, Texas, they do this in Austin too, because I lived in Austin. Ask how the water is allocated. Is it an individual meter, meaning you're only going to be charged for the water that you use, or is it some kind of like, and I'm going to say this wrong because I can't remember the technical term for it, but like some kind of like building method where they take from everyone who lives inside of the building, and then they average it out. And then you want to know how that breakdown is, because if you're one person living in an apartment and there's a 3-bedroom apartment with other people, how are they doing that breakdown? And one of the things that they are required to give you is like historically how your unit has been charged. So you can kind of see what people in the past have been paying for water. A lot of people do not know that. They are required to give that to you, especially if you request it. You shouldn't have to request it. They should just be giving it to you. But if they don't and you request that, you want to take a look at it, because it'll give you a clear indication of how much people have been paying in the past for your exact unit. And these things are important because, you know, you're thinking about the rent costs, right? Like, here's my budget for rent, but there are other things that go into like the final monthly bill. So anywho, we're going to keep going. So ask about the water. Ask about any additional charges like amenity fees. People charge that. And you want to know exactly what it covers and exactly what it is, because they could tell you it's like $50, but like, what is the breakdown of that? What are you paying for when you do that? Parking. Is there a charge for parking? Is there a charge beyond having one vehicle and one name on the lease? Because sometimes if you're one individual in an apartment, they'll give you your first car for free. But if you have a second car and it's just one name on the lease, they will try to charge you for that second vehicle. So ask those kind of questions. What about guests? How does guest parking work? How often can the same guest with the same license plate park within a week? Because there are also those kind of like parameters that a lot of apartments have started to put on parking. Trash. Do y'all charge for trash? Because some apartments only do valet trash and you have to pay for that fee. Or can I bring my bags to the trash myself for free? Washer and dryer. Not only are you curious about like, is there a washer and dryer connection, but can I rent a washer and dryer from you, and how much does that cost? Because a lot of apartments have started offering that as well. And then you want to know how much sewer and trash costs too, because a lot of times that'll be included on your like rent ledger along with the water and stuff like that. How much is the application fee? How much is the administration fee? How much is the deposit? Do you require rental insurance? And are there any companies that you don't allow us to use as rental insurance companies? Because I think Lemon, if I'm not mistaken, was a company that a lot of apartments excluded. Like, you weren't allowed to get Lemon rental insurance through a company called Lemon. I'm not necessarily sure why. I just did what I was supposed to do. But ask those kind of questions. Because like I said, your budget may be, you know, $1,800 or what so have you. But $1,800 for base rent, $1,800 for, you know, everything, because all of this other stuff plays a factor in what your monthly bill would be. And then you still have to consider your electricity and rent and cable or whatever else you have. So make sure that you are asking those kind of questions so you're not shocked when your first, you know, month rolls around after living in there and your utility bills start coming out for water, sewer, trash, amenities, and you're like, oh, pause, wait a minute, y'all didn't say all of that. Well, girl, it's in your lease. Did you read it? So on and so forth. So anyways, and I'm gonna get back to the lease in just a moment, but also ask about any look and lease specials. This is so important. I don't care if they don't have, because some apartments will have it advertised. Like, be sure to ask about our look and lease special, but even if they don't, ask about a look and lease special. Always ask about a look and lease special. And I'm gonna go back to the using a realtor thing really quick. The other reason I didn't want to use a realtor is because I wondered if I ended up getting a really good look and lease special for my mom. And I wondered if I would have used a realtor, if part of that would have gone to the realtor instead of my mom being able to get all of that, which I'm pretty sure it would have. So that was one of the other reasons why I was like, I won't use a realtor, because we trying to get all the coins, all the money in. We trying to save all the money. And then, well, I'll talk about the lease after I do all of this other stuff. I'll just remind myself. But here's how the breakdown ended up going for my mom when she moved into her apartment earlier this year. So this specific complex was under new management. And new management was like upgrading a lot of the apartments, but they hadn't finished upgrading all of the apartments. And my mom is a person who doesn't really care for stainless steel appliances, but some of the units still had black appliances with like this like brown cabinet, white, and there were brown cabinets and some had white cabinets. And my mom was like, okay, well, I could do the black appliances. That would be cool. So I asked them about it, and they were like, well, she doesn't have to do the upgraded unit for this price. She could do a partially upgraded unit for this price, and it was going to be $100 cheaper. Yep, sign us up. $100 cheaper and she gets her black appliances and she ended up with white cabinets. Yep, sign us up. So that saved $100 per month. Okay, back to the Look and Lease special. They had a deal where, like, if you signed the application or like submitted everything within like 24 or 48 hours, you get $250 off. And then they were running something else where you got an additional $500 off your second month's rent. So I ended up getting her $750 for that. So all of that ended up coming out of her second month's rent. So $100 per month was coming off for that partial upgrade. $750, a one-time thing, was gonna come off her second month's rent. And then I ended up having like issues as it related to like her move-in date and them swapping it and like what apartment she would have been moving in and this, that, and the third, and it caused a lot of confusion. So I was like, look, y'all are giving us a really hard time. What else are y'all gonna do for us? Like, what else are y'all gonna throw in? Because this is crazy, like the back and forthness of it all. So, you know, I was like, I think that it would be fair for all the confusion that y'all have caused, because my mom we ended up having to request a later move out date for my mom's apartment because they weren't going to have my mom's apartment ready in time. And it was some other things that happened too. But I was just like, I feel like a fair trade would be, my mom wanted to rent a washer and dryer from them. I felt like it would be fair if y'all waive that monthly fee for her throughout the first year of her lease. And the person, you know, I don't know exactly what their title was, but like whatever the person is who sits at the front desk was who I was like working with. And he was like, well, no. And I was like, well, I'm not asking you respectfully. I would like to talk to the property manager directly myself. And he was like, they're probably going to say no. And I said, probably isn't a yes. And I want to talk to them directly. And I want to talk to them. So if you're not going to convey, you know, the message right. So he was like, I'll go hold a conversation on your behalf. He went and held the conversation and gave them everything that had happened. Because the other thing was they had like changed something where they took the partially upgraded like $100 off away. And I was like, wait a minute. No, I have the paper, because that's the other thing is I have them write everything out for me on like, because they always have like the floor plans. I always have them write everything out for me on that piece of paper. I was like, right here. You wrote it right here. You wrote it on this other piece of paper. And he was like, oh, my bad. We will honor that. So he went and spoke to her and told her about everything that had happened, and they agreed. So right there, closed mouths don't get fed. So that $50 a month my mother would have been spending on a washer and dryer, we ended up getting that waived for, you know, the 12 months that would have been her lease. So, you know, you do the math on that. 50 times 12, what's that? $600. That's an additional $600. So $750 plus $600 plus the $100 per month. That's $1,200. That's a lot of money that we saved. And I don't know if a realtor would have went that extra mile for my mom, or they would have just been like, well, here's the apartment. Where's my check? You good to go. Bye. So we ended up saving a lot of money, even though I had to put a lot of time in by me doing it. So I'm just going to throw that out. And I'm going to go back to the parking really quickly. My mom had a lot of like physicians coming, like OT, PT, nutritionists, like they were coming to like check on her, and some of them were coming multiple times throughout the week. So that's why parking was also really important to us regarding guests, like how often can they park within a week, because we knew this already. And one of the things that the apartments did, both her old apartment complex and the new one that she moved in, is they had like a caregiver pass. They gave us caregiver parking passes. They gave us 2 of them, and you know, they make them good for however long. Like maybe it's for the month, maybe it's for 2 months, and then you just go back and get some more. But if that is something that you're concerned about, if you have a loved one that, you know, does have people coming out to check on them daily and you're concerned about that, please be sure to ask the apartments about whether or not they could do a caregiver pass. And all they have to do is, you know, you talk to the OT, the PT, and let them know you don't have to register your car when you come, but you do have to run inside really quickly to get the parking pass to put it inside of your car to make sure that you're good to go. And then they'll tell you where you can park with it, because sometimes you still have to park in guest parking. Sometimes with them you get to park in regular parking, but work that out with your apartments. But please ask for that kind of stuff, because I do understand from experience that like that could really put a strain on you if you know that your loved one requires that kind of care and parking is a concern for you. So ask about that. And then the last thing that I'm going to say to you is read your lease, because one of the other things we ended up having a discrepancy with is they messed my mom's lease up, but they messed it up in a way that was in her favor. And I caught it when we signed the lease. They didn't catch it until after my mom had been in there for like 3 weeks or so. I don't know if they went and reviewed the leases. I don't know what happened, but they contacted me and was like, oh, you have to sign a new lease. And I said, They were like, oh, you have to sign a new lease. And I was like, for what? Because at this point I'm humoring them. For what? And they're like, oh, well, the old lease can't stand, like, you have to sign a new lease. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll have my mom take care of that right away. And I got off the phone with her and I called my mom and I was like, girl, if they call you, tell them to call me back. But because once I sign a lease, it doesn't matter. You messed up, not me. I don't have to sign a new anything. I've already met my obligation. So read your lease, read it to make sure it says what it needs to say so you're protected, but also read it because they messed up so major on this lease that, like, if we wanted to be meanies, which we didn't, but if we wanted to be meanies, this could have ended up like in court if they wanted to fight it, and they would have lost a lot of money. But we weren't being meanies, but they were trying to get us to sign a new lease, and that's like no go. A landlord cannot make you sign a new lease. That is illegal. I don't care what they tell you. You've already signed it. You good. You whatever is in it is in it. We're not doing nothing extra. But yes. So we ended up saving a whole lot of money. I hope that these moving tips were helpful for you. And the last thing that I'm going to say is when you actually do move into your apartment, I know in Texas, some other places, they give you like an inventory checklist and you have to get it back to them probably 48 hours, 72 hours. Always fill that out. Always fill it out and be as detailed as possible. I don't feel like I don't even care if you think you being petty. I don't care if it's just like the rubber under the door when you open it is a little ripped. You put that on there. Take pictures of everything. Take videos of everything. Literally walk through the room, open up the cabinets, have the microwave open, but film everything so it's time stamped, so when you go to move out, if there is an issue, you have that. And make sure you get that inventory checklist and be so detailed and petty as possible. But make sure you get a copy of that. Make sure you get a copy of that. Did y'all hear me say make sure you get a copy of that? And keep it on file. Keep your videos, keep your pictures, and then when you move out, because I can't believe people don't do this, when you move out of your apartment, do the same thing. I know you do a walkthrough with them and they'll sign up and say you're good to go. I don't care. We don't know them people. We don't know them. You make sure that the same way when you moved in, you took a video, you took your pictures, you did everything it was you needed to do. You make sure that you do that when you're moving out as well. So if they try to do anything to keep your security deposit, you gonna get your security deposit back. Like, they're not just trying to charge you for wear and tear and things like that. But anyways, I hope that this was super helpful for you. I have other videos that are online that are related to moving if you need to hire a moving company, and I have a few videos online that can assist you with that. So go ahead, take a look at those videos. I have like 3 different videos up. So a long distance move, a short haul move. If you want to do a DIY type move, I have all of that information or all those videos up for you. And I'll link them in this video actually so they're easier to find. But if you have any questions, please drop them down in the comments. If I missed anything, let me know. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful and happy moving day. All right, bye.